it's Affy, and today I am here to do my October wrap up. I read only 3 books in October. I, again, barely tried. It's better than September, I guess, where I read only 1 book. So I'm going to applaud myself for that. At least I read more than 1 book in October. I did get some good reads in October, one being a 6-star read, so I'm really excited about that. But I'm not going to talk too much. I'm just going to hop right in. So the first book that I have here is the second book in the Dressmaker series. This is by Loretta Chase. This is Scandal Wear Satin, and I don't know if you can see the I'm sorry, my lights are very bright today. So in this book we have Harry and Sophia. This series is about 3 sisters and they own a dressmaking shop. So Sophia is the middle sister, and she basically is kind of a jack of all trades. She does a lot of different things around the business, but she also is a news reporter-ish. And she kind of sneaks around. She's kind of one of those people who can blend in when she needs to, but like stand out when she needs to as well. And she uses that to her advantage when it comes to news reporting. Our hero's name is Harry, and Harry is the brother of their favorite customer. She's a young girl. She's the daughter of, I believe, an earl or a duke, and she is their most popular customer. She's popular within the town, like everybody likes her. She's kind of the belle of the ball, and so they're really happy to have her as a customer. So they had hoped that this young woman would marry a rich guy. If you remember from the first book, she was supposed to marry the hero from the first book. So they were hoping this young lady would marry a rich guy, and so they'd always have, like good money coming in from their favorite customer. Well, something goes awry, and this young girl ends up being ruined by a guy who's basically an impoverished lord. Like he's out here spending money everywhere. He is gambling all his money away. He's in debt, and they're like, "Oh no, this is not a good situation. She can't be engaged to a man like that. Like we're not going to have any business if she marries an impoverished lord." When a few weeks after the whole incident happens, the young girl runs away. Sophie and Harry decide that they are going to basically go find her. Sophie feels like, this being their main client, they don't want to lose her business. And so she offers to help Harry go find his sister. So this is a road trip romance. This one was interesting. Not as many hijinks as I would have liked. Oftentimes in road trip stories, there's like crazy things happen and people end up in crazy situations. There wasn't that much of that in this book. It was pretty straightforward. When they do finally find Harry's sister, things get more interesting at that point in the book, I feel like. Just because they have to come up with some type of plan as to how to not only help their business, but help this young lady get out of the situation that she's gotten herself into. And so they come up with this crazy harebrained idea of how to get her out of this situation. And it involves Sophie basically putting on her best Oscar level performance. These two had really good banter. I love their banter. There's a scene towards the end of the book where they are arguing whilst like taking each other's clothes off and throwing like these little tiny tantrums where they're like, I'd be perfectly happy if you left right now. You can leave and I'd feel so much better about you not being here. Takes off his shirt. And she'd be like, well then go then. I don't care. And then he'd like take off her like skirt. And they just like keep going like this. Just like, I could care less if you so and so. You can leave right now and I'd be perfectly happy. And then, you know, somebody's shirt would come off or some underwear would come off, and they just keep going like that. The banter just like continuing while they're stripping each other's clothes off and getting naked. And that scene had me laughing so hard. I could not. Like, I just found it to be very, very good scene. It was so much fun. Harry had this thing where he would complain about women's feelings all the time. Like, ugh, women and your feelings. And it started to get annoying by like the third or fourth time. I was like, dude, shut up. It's kind of interesting that these two, they met in the first book. So if you haven't read the first book, it kind of probably feels like, how do they even know each other when you start this book? Because he does kind of have like this interest in her where he tries to act like he's not that interested in her. But she intrigues him, and so he's just kind of like, yeah, that girl, she thinks she's so smart, and you know, she thinks she knows everything, but then he'll be like watching her as she leaves the room, like thinking to himself like, damn, she really knows how to swish them hips. Like, you know, and then go back to thinking like, but she's so hard-headed, that woman. She thinks she knows everything. So he's kind of got that kind of mindset about her, and she just kind of sees him as this big oaf in the beginning, just like this guy who thinks he knows everything, but he's clueless. So I did like this one. I gave it 4 stars. I didn't love it as much as the first book in the series. Like I said, the whole road trip aspect of it wasn't as interesting as I had hoped it would be. But like I said, it does get pretty fun towards the end of the book, and then there's that one scene of them just stripping each other's clothes off and, you know, having this little sexy banter between the two of them. I really did enjoy this one. I just didn't love it as much as the first book in the series. So the next book that I read in October is by Sarah MacLean. This is the 3rd book in the Scandal and Scoundrel series, The Day of the Duchess. And this is actually the book that I was really looking forward to reading in this series, and I loved this. This was amazing. I see why people love this book. So we've got Seraphina and Malcolm, or she just goes by Sarah. And Seraphina walks into Parliament on the last day of the season, and she basically asks for a divorce from her husband. And he's a duke, so he's sitting there in Parliament, and you know, he hasn't seen her in 3 years. He just kind of is in shock because he's been looking for her for 3 years, and she just walks into his place of employment and is like, oh, by the way, I want to divorce you. He doesn't want to divorce her. He treated her horribly, but he did love her. He does love her. And so he's trying to come up with some way of at least getting her to like talk to him so that he can try and convince her to stay. He comes up with the ridiculous idea of having her come and stay with him in the country and help him find a replacement wife. He has no plans on actually letting her divorce him. But he basically tells her, you know, if you come to the countryside, I will find some young ladies that, you know, might be a good fit, and you can help me decide which of them is going to be my new wife since we're going to be getting a divorce. All this just to have her with him so that he can do whatever he has to do to convince her to stay. So she brings her sisters, and they kind of walk into this country house like the bad bitches that they are, and hilarity ensues. There are some really funny moments in this book, and there are some very, very deep and sad moments as well. When they first met, it was, especially on his side, love at first sight. And they had spent all this time together, but he wasn't making it very clear whether he wanted to marry her or not. And it had come out in the news that, you know, she was being like a hussy because she was spending all this time with him together. It seemed like they had been alone at one point, and it got picked up in the news, and her mother got really upset and was like, if you're going to keep seeing this guy, like, you need to make it official. You need to find a way to get him to marry you. And so her mother convinces her to basically trap him into marriage. And he had been planning to ask her to marry him anyways, but once he realizes that she's done this, he basically decides like he can't trust her. He doesn't trust her. And so he just goes cold on her and he starts to treat her horribly. They go from this beautiful, like very loving beginning of their relationship to just animosity between the two of them, contempt between the two of them. And it's not until after she leaves that he realizes he still loves her. And so, with her trying to divorce him, he's like, I gotta do whatever I can do in my power to get her to stay. Like, I realize now what an awful person I was to her. And, you know, I'm willing to do anything. She really does push him away a lot. Like, I, at one point, was like, I don't even think she's gonna forgive him by the time this book is done. Like, I don't even see that happening, because she really does push him away a lot, and he's just kind of like, I'm never gonna give up. Like, I'm holding on hope forever. There's definitely a lot of good groveling in this book. This book is all grovel and nothing else. I mean, this poor man. And she tries so hard to avoid him for like the first week or two. She's like doing everything in her power to not see this man, and he's doing everything in his power to see her. I really didn't think she was going to forgive him. And she finally does at the last minute, and it's just kind of like, girl, why'd you wait so damn long? Why did it take you so freaking long? I had to read the whole damn book. I loved it though. I gave it 6 stars. This is a funny series. I think it's really her sisters that bring the comedic relief to the book. Even in the first 2 books, her sisters were a lot of fun in the first 2 books. But I really love this series. I gave the first book 5 stars. I gave the second book, I think, 4.5 stars. And then I gave this one 6 stars. It's a really good series if you haven't read it. And I hadn't really been like a big Sarah MacLean like fan. I liked her stuff that I read, but I wasn't like wowed by it. But this book wowed me. This book is really, really amazing. Like a standout in a really good series. And so, I really enjoyed myself with this one. The last book that I read in October is by Lorraine Heath. This was the 4th book in the Scoundrels of St. James series. This is Midnight Pleasures with the Scoundrel, and I'm pretty sure this is the last book in this series, if I'm not mistaken. I really enjoyed this one as well. This was a really, really fun one. Lots of twists and turns. In this book, we have James Swindler. He grew up on the streets of St. James. He goes by Swindler because he was the one that swindled everybody on the streets growing up, and so he took that as his last name. And then we've got our heroine, Eleanor. Eleanor basically lost her twin sister. Her twin sister had jumped off the cliffs in their seaside town. She found her sister's diary, and something horrible had happened to her in London while she was there for a season. And so she decides that she's going to go to London and she's going to get revenge. Basically, this man took advantage of her sister and put her in a horrible, horrible situation, and something happened that her sister just couldn't live with it, and so she took her own life. James, who works for the Bow Street Runners, so he's basically a cop, and he this guy who she's following knows that she's following him, and so he's gone to the Bow Street Runners and basically told them, like, there's a woman following me. I don't know what her problem is, but like, get her to leave me alone. And so James is basically like following her, as she's following this guy. And one night she gets attacked by some men, and so James is like, shit, I'm gonna have to step in and I'm gonna have to like help her out. And he was trying to kind of not be noticed by her. But once he steps in to save her, he's like, well, I'm already in it now, so I might as well just like talk to her and, you know, take a different route with this. He decides to invite her for a walk the next day. He's like, how about I just try to get to know her and maybe she'll tell me what her plan is. And so he decides he's going to spend some time with her, try to get her to trust him a little bit, and then maybe he can get the whole situation worked out that way. He obviously enjoys spending time with her, so they're just kind of doing something together every single day of the week. Like, he's really enjoying his time with her and kind of starting to forget that like this is part of his job. He's just kind of like, I'm really enjoying spending time with this lady. Like, this is so much fun. It's like, dude, you're working. Like, this is your job. And so he's kind of getting sucked in, and he's really feeling like, no, she's not capable of doing anything. Like, she's not gonna harm this guy. Like, this is all just speculation. Like, I don't think she's gonna do anything. And, you know, they get invited to a ball, and they spend that night together, and then he goes into the office the next morning and finds out that the guy she's been stalking has been murdered. And the brother of the guy is saying that Eleanor is the one who did it. And so things get very interesting from there. There was definitely a lot of twists in this book. I was not expecting some of the things that went down. It was fun. It was a lot of fun. I think one of the saddest moments in this book was reading and finding out what happened to her twin and how she was basically taken advantage of by this lord and his friends. There's a really sad aspect of the story here about how he became an orphan. He had stolen from someone, and it was a watch. He had stolen a watch from like a titled gentleman, and he stole it and he stuck it in his dad's pockets as they were walking, and his dad got caught for stealing the watch, and his dad got hanged for a watch. And he, for his entire life, has basically blamed himself for his dad dying and him ending up on the streets. And it's like this big thing for him that he really does have a lot of guilt inside over that. He had a thing for Franny for years, but she got married in the previous book, and he was really, really upset about it at first. But once he meets Eleanor, he kind of realizes that now he doesn't have those sad feelings towards her marrying. He actually feels happy for her. He's able to move on once he's met Eleanor. It starts with a diary entry of his and it ends with a diary entry of his. In both, he talks about Eleanor, and in the first one he says, and then I met her, and then in the end, in the last one, he's like, she's my everything, or something along those lines. And I was just like, I enjoyed this one. I gave this one 5 stars. This has been a really good series. Another really good one from Lorraine Heath. The Sins for All Seasons series, I gave every book in that series 5 stars. And for this one, I gave 2 of the books 5 stars and 2 of the books 4 stars. So almost as good as the Sins for All Seasons series. Not as great in my opinion, but I know a lot of people who do really, really love this series. I really did like this series as a whole, and yeah, I just love Lorraine Heath as a whole. She's just an amazing writer. So, yeah, like I said, the twists in this book was they were just so good and kept me on my toes, and I really like that about this book. So, another 5-star read. Thank you so much for watching. If you've read any of these books, which I'm sure a few of you have, especially Day of the Duchess, that's a really popular one. Definitely let me know if you've read that one and what you thought about it. And if you've made it to the end of this video, leave me some type of bird in the comment section to let me know that you made it to the end. And I will see you in my next video. Bye.